Hello and welcome. My name is Jason and I'm the owner and founder of Reforming Trauma Coaching and Counseling. Today's video is hopefully going to be an interesting video for you because I'm going to talk about the period of time in my life when I was paranoid and I was delusional. That was between 2013, mid 2013, late 2013 until about 2019 maybe. That was when those sort of delusional beliefs were most predominant anyway, and that paranoia was most predominant. So just to give a bit of perspective, and this is sort of knowledge I've learned after everything that's occurred, when it comes to delusions, there can be non-bizarre delusions and there can be bizarre delusions. Delusions in itself are false beliefs that we hold in contrary to any sort of real evidence. So that's delusions. So for a non-bizarre delusion, non-bizarre delusions could actually happen in reality, right? So being followed, for example, having a delusional belief that we're being followed, but it's very, very difficult to prove that we're being followed because we can't video record someone following us, whatever it may be. That'll be classified as a non-bizarre delusion because it could actually happen in reality. A bizarre delusion, on the other hand, is something which cannot possibly occur within reality, right? So this might be a delusional belief that the water in the ocean and the water that's coming out of your sink or coming out of your tap is colluding to one day drown you or something like that, right? Or a delusional belief, a bizarre delusional belief might be thinking that you've had your kidney removed, even though there's no scars, even though there's no evidence you've ever been in the hospital, even though a ultrasound is showing that your kidney is still there, believing that your kidney is not there after it's been removed from the surgery, despite all of that evidence, would be a bizarre delusion. Okay, so where does this lead for me? So my delusional thoughts and my paranoia stem from a non-bizarre delusion. I can pinpoint when this non-bizarre delusion started. So it was after I was going through a separation with an ex-partner. We had children. I went to see the children at the daycare. That was okay, went good. I rang up. I wanted to meet them again a second time. And the daycare center said to me, sorry, we can't do that. We received a letter from the mother's lawyer saying that you're not allowed to visit for whatever reasons. The way that they worked in my mind is I thought, well, if this daycare center can be influenced by a lawyer's letter, despite anything, despite not having been any custody orders, despite not being any restraining orders, nothing like that, yet this daycare center was influenced by a lawyer's letter. And the way that I kind of interpreted that is most people would trust a lawyer's letter because a lawyer is in a position of authority. Most people will blindly trust whatever that person said, right? So that for me was kind of like, okay, I need to be a bit mindful here. And then the second thing was, okay, if they've sent that letter to one person, who else are they sending these letters to? Are they sending it to my work colleagues? Are they sending it to other people? And the reason why I had this belief was because my ex-partner at the time had actually set up my email account, my original email account. I didn't know a lot about technology back in those days. I didn't even occur to me to change my password, after we separated. None of that stuff sort of occurred to me. It did occur to me later, though, that if she did have access, she would have access to all my contacts, right? So all my people at work, all my people that I know. And then that's kind of fueled that non-bizarre delusion that, okay, this lawyer could be sending out a bunch of letters. It could be saying anything. That I've got no idea what could be in these letters. And then I started looking for people's reactions to this hypothetical letter scenario, right? And the way that kind of worked was I started becoming really, really hyper vigilant in what people were saying and what people were doing, and how people were looking at me. So someone might make an off comment like, oh, how are you today? How are your children? And that would go down that paranoia delusion pathway. It was like, well, why are you asking me that question? Where did this question come from? And obviously in that point in life as separation, I was quite distressed. I was managing a lot. I was trying to come to terms with my own trauma and all that sort of stuff. So my outward behaviors was changing quite a lot, right? It was observable to other people. But their changes to my observable behaviors wasn't seen as a consequence of me just being depressed and me being anxious and all those sorts of poor mental health behavioral manifestations. I view them more as they've altered their opinion of me based on this hypothetical letter that's come from a lawyer that they've read, right? That's kind of what led me down that rabbit hole. The paranoia and the non-bizarre delusions got to the point where I was actually looking through the TV trying to find a camera. I was looking in smoke detectors, I was opening them up, I was physically trying to see a microphone or a camera, something like that. I would perform for the cameras when I was at home alone. I would start acting in a certain way, and then I'd wait and see if anyone called me or if anyone messaged me to say, hey, you okay, something like that. That was the way I could try and confirm that I was actually being spied on. I would actually put notes into my phone. I might put a note like I'm going to try and kill myself. And then if by chance a friend called me 5 minutes later or a few hours later, that would confirm that I was being spied on, that these group of people had access to the messages that were on my phone and things like that, right? So that was the way I was trying to confirm my delusional belief. It got to the point where if I went out for somewhere, for example, I'd leave my phone at home so I couldn't be tracked through my phone. I would bury money in places so that if anything ever happened, I can go and get that money again. I would have extra phones. I would only use some phones that didn't have access to Wi-Fi. And that was a phone that I would sort of do journals on and things like that, and then I would hide that phone. I would have fake diaries and fake journals where if anyone did read it, it wasn't true to what I was thinking of feeling at any given time. That was the extreme ends of that paranoia and the extreme ends of those delusional beliefs. How I started to overcome those beliefs was pretty much using logic, right? If I thought that people had, like, to be spied on, for example, right? If I'm in my home, if I'm in my own home, all by myself, it makes sense that somebody can get a court order to put spying equipment in my house, right? That would kind of make sense. It wouldn't make sense if I was living in somebody else's house, because the chances of someone else letting me stay there while these people come and put cameras inside their house wouldn't make sense, right? So I end up stopping from living by myself and I moved into a share house. And I moved into a share house for that exact reason, because I figured it'd be a lot harder for anyone to get a court order to put any kind of spy equipment in my house, and even into my bedroom. I thought that, well, if that was the case, someone would kick me out straight away and they say, you know what, this isn't working. This is too much of a crazy situation for me to deal with. You need to go and find somewhere else to live. I've actually been in that house now for 6, 7, 8 years maybe. So that's obviously proof that that wasn't occurring. But again, it's the other value of being in a house is they had CCTV. So I figured, oh, if anyone was following me, then that CCTV would have recorded that, right? So if someone had driven around and stopped in front of the house, then that would confirm that I was being followed. I had also at some point gotten a hold of some sort of register in case a court order was made against me and I wasn't aware of it. I was able to go and see if there was court orders against me. I don't remember exactly how I done that, but that was a thing that I did to try and confirm whether I was being followed or not. And that was that paranoia and those delusional beliefs was also the reason why I started looking at international dating. Again, my logic suggested to me that it would be hard to get a court order for somebody that wasn't in Australia, right? That process would be a lot harder. So that's the reason why I started looking at international dating. By coincidence, that's kind of how I met my wife. But the idea was, well, if they said to my partner at the time, which is now my wife, we want to track this person, we want to monitor your messages, we want to do this or that, that process would be a lot harder in my mind outside Australia than it would be in Australia, right? So that those sort of actions, taking those sort of logical steps to dispel the delusion, led me to overcome the delusional beliefs in the long run. It did take time, it did take effort. Even when I did move into that new house, that share house, I still had a phone which I'd only use in the bathroom. I wouldn't have it connected to Wi-Fi. I would only have it connected to Wi-Fi if I went to McDonald's or something like that. And those were the sort of things I do. I wouldn't use that phone in my bedroom, just in case my bedroom was still being spied on. So I'd take it into the bathroom because the bathroom was a shared space. And again, logically, it'll be harder to get a court order for cameras in a shared space, right? Especially for a bathroom shared space. So that is how I sort of helped myself to overcome some of these non-bizarre delusions and paranoia. It was definitely a challenging time in my life. When I look back on it, it was kind of sad. You know, I mean, I didn't have a lot of support. I didn't seek mental health support because I didn't really see how it would have worked. My brain at that time was geared towards paranoia, so anything that I discussed with a therapist, I would have automatically assumed went back to my ex-partner, or would have automatically assumed that the ex-partner's lawyer had said something to the therapist, and so that was tainted. So it was quite a challenging time. I was very fortunate that I was able to just use my own personality traits to get myself out of that. A lot of people are not as unfortunate, so I was kind of a lucky one in a lot of ways. And again, that's one of the reasons why I ended up becoming a life coach and a counselor, because it gave me a different perspective, lived experience about paranoia and delusions rather than that textbook knowledge, right? So there we go. That's hopefully gives you some insight in terms of my own mental health, in terms of my own mental health struggles, and hopefully provides sort of hope and optimism that you can overcome these challenges in the right circumstances, right? Just because I sort of overcome them without therapy doesn't mean that therapy is invaluable for other people, right? Therapy is definitely a shortcut. That's kind of what I've learned after all this. I pushed myself to extremes to try and understand all this while I had a family, while I was trying to work, while I was under the influence of substances and things like that. And for me, it could have went really, really wrong. The amount of mental pressure that I was putting on myself, that could have went down a whole different path. So I definitely encourage people that are having delusional beliefs, especially non-bizarre delusional beliefs after a separation that you're being followed. Those are those very, very tricky ones. It's where you trust your intuition, but also have the evidence to validate that claim, especially if you're in an abusive relationship with certain personality types. And in these days with modern technology where they can put tracking apps on your phone, those AirTag things that you could just put in a car somewhere and then someone can know your location, those sorts of things. And this is why it's very be very mindful, to be able to see a therapist or some other professional so they can provide you with guidance about not going too far down that delusional pathway to the point where you're checking your TV, you're checking smoke detectors for cameras and things like that. So again, hopefully this information is useful for you. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer questions, more than happy to provide more insight. And there we go. Thank you very much.